Hi again then guys, and welcome to another specific car review in the world of Gran Turismo Sport, and this time once again we are returning to the rally world to feature a vehicle which of course has been around on the game for some time, since day one in fact, the Honda NSX Group B car, based of course on the newer NSX, which I think personally has more of a rally look to it than the previous NSXs did. They looked very much so like road cars, whereas this one, it's got a bit more of a chunkier appearance, and it kind of suits being taken off-road. Now the question is, of course, can the NSX's raw ability on the road translate to the dirt? Because being a great road car, of course, doesn't automatically make that a good thing on the dirt, or on the snow, or on anything except tarmac. There are, of course, plenty of cars, not just race cars, but even road cars as well, which aren't that great off-road. Well, I'm glad to say it's really good. Now, I'm not going to say that it's necessarily the best example of a rally car in the game, because that's a very competitive bracket. Even though we don't have as many rally cars as, for instance, road cars or other race cars, it is still a very competitive little group. You've got Hyundai, Nissan, Ford, Honda here, various others too, Peugeot, and they're all great. That's the whole point. They've got to be competitive against each other. I would definitely say that the NSX is, at least for me, better than some. Perhaps not quite as sharp as others. I would say that the Toyota 86 rally car is a very good choice, especially on smaller, tighter circuits, because you can make use of its very compact body style, whereas something like the GTR, for instance, that car shocked me by how good it actually was. And the GTR, of course, was already great to turn into a rally car on Gran Turismo 6 even, so it's not really too surprising that it would be on Gran Turismo Sport as well. Now, in terms of what you get from the Honda, the pricing of course is the same as all of the others, 450 grand, and for that you get an unknown engine size, at least in the game, 557 horsepower to begin with, 422 pound-feet of torque, and it weighs in at a very, very reasonable 1,300 kilos. So that's pretty good. It's lighter than, for instance, the Group 4 version, which weighs 1,360 kilos, but you're paying 100 grand more for it. But of course they're completely different cars in terms of their purpose, despite sharing the same basic vehicle underneath. Now, we already took a look at both the road car and the Group 3 race car, which is pretty popular, but I found the race car to be, especially back when I reviewed it a couple of updates ago, a little bit temperamental. It's one of those cars that has a ton of potential, but you have to set it up right, you have to drive it in the right way to really get the best out of it. And the road car has been kind of controversial, which I didn't expect. I thought that everyone would love the road car because the concept version of the NSX on Gran Turismo 6 was very fun to have on the game, but it wasn't all that useful. You couldn't do that much to it or win many races with it. So I thought that people would love using it, taking it up against the GTR, the FT1, and of course you can. But at the same time, I'm surprised by the amount of people who found it challenging, which is odd to me, because I found the NSX to be one of the most forgiving cars in the game to drive in a very aggressive manner. It's brilliant for drifting, you can easily slide it through corners, so unless that's what you mean by challenging, I mean, yeah, fair enough, it is a tail-happy car for sure, but it's a very easy car to control. At the same time, in a similar way to the Mines Skyline, which I tuned up the other day. Does it drift? Yeah, a lot, but it's great to drive as well. Now, as far as being a rally car goes, as I said, this one is definitely better suited than some others, and not quite as well suited as, for instance, something like, as an example, the Ford Focus, perhaps, which has a strong lineage, or an Impreza, for instance, or an Evo. They have that lineage there already. But I will say that the NSX is extremely well acclimated to being a rally car. It feels fantastic, and one of the things that I like about this one more than the GTR, as great as the GTR is actually the fact that it carries its weight much lower. It's a more squat, wider feeling car than the GTR is, which is just big in every way. It's long, it's tall, it's wide. With the NSX that isn't the case. It's moderately long, it's not overly long, and it is quite wide, but it's not very tall, and you can feel that through corners. It doesn't roll around as much, regardless of suspension settings. The car just feels more planted. In fact, it feels exactly like what it is. a rally supercar. And if you really think about it, it's one of the only, if not, as far as I can currently think of, the only rally supercar we currently have in the game, because all of the others are based on sports coupes, hatchbacks, sedans even. None of the others that I can think of are based on a supercar, or at the very least a super sports car. But I think most people would probably agree that this is a supercar, on par with the GTR. And I guess you could say the GTR is as well, actually. I hadn't thought about that, but there are two, technically speaking, two supercar rally cars, and they're perfectly rivaled to each other. I do wish, however, that we had a rally version of the Lamborghini Huracan, because that would be a great rival to this car, and I think that would look fantastic with an off-road style body kit. But be that as it may, this one I would say is one of those cars that isn't as beginner-friendly as something like, for instance, the GTR, which you can just jump in and destroy everything with. That's kind of the point of a GTR, but also not necessarily as forgiving as, for instance, the 86, which is also a very good car. But at the same time, it's not necessarily quite as challenging as, for instance, some of the other older rally cars in the game, or even in past Gran Turismo games as well. Overall, if you do get the chance to use the NSX as a rally car, even if you don't use it all the time, or even if you end up preferring something else, which is of course fair enough, I would urge you to give this one a try, because the advantages which it does carry over from the supercar world into the rally world are pretty good. The car feels very good on the dirt, it certainly looks fantastic, it sounds great, it's most definitely a capable competition machine, and if you actually compare the lap times between this and my GTR, this was 2 seconds quicker for me on this same track. Now, of course, that may just be down to me playing the game for longer, but even so, the difference is there. It was also 2 seconds quicker than my Focus, which was, by definition, roughly the same as the GTR. So, very interesting result indeed. So definitely check it out if you haven't yet. Most people have probably at least driven this car so far at some point, but if, for whatever reason, you hadn't, give it a look. It's a good rally car. A deceptively good one, actually. But that's it for this pick overall. Of course, I'll see you guys next time, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.